saving a business in its current format is not always possible. In some cases, the only way to successfully rehabilitate a company is to embrace change and let go of outdated models. This episode will explore exit strategies in turnaround management using examples like Nokia, Berkshire Hathaway, and the enduring success of Congo Gumi to illustrate the importance of knowing when to pivot or let go. Your host for the session is Pattinson, a professional turnaround practitioner with a success rate of more than 95% for all business rescue plans published to date. Pat specializes in the compliant and ethical rehabilitation of distressed businesses towards an outcome of saving businesses, saving jobs, and providing the best possible outcome to all affected persons.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's sessions on exit strategies. We will look at exit strategies in general, but more specifically in a distressed environment. In my career, I've come across many companies that were on the brink of liquidation or on the brink of closure. Sometimes these entities did not even believe that they had the capital or the resources to liquidate. We had a look into these entities and found that there were ways out. Most instances, we sold these entities as a whole. And it's quite a tricky situation. And the biggest problem we sit off is right in the beginning, when the directors and the shareholders of that particular entity do not believe that they can sell a business that is so far gone, that is so in financial distress that they believe there are no one interested in acquiring their companies. But if we look at the theory that we spoke about before, where Warren Buffett introduces the cigar butt investment, the butt that some person throws away is that little part that another person can find value in. Not just in the assets, but intellectual property, market share. There are opportunities out there for companies in financial distress that can no longer stomach the threats from creditors and the consistent demand of payments from all those that are trying to leach just a little bit of what's left in the entity. Just a reminder, of course, that I always say that it's only a failure of this choice to stop trying is not your own. And if we look at companies like Nokia started off many, many years ago as a timber company, and they faced financial distress and they reinvented themselves into technology, into cell phones, back into technology. So the company that originally existed is no longer there. That financial distress pushed them in a different direction. Similarly, I've mentioned before Warren Buffett. The company that we know today as Berkshire Hathaway, this great investment house, was a textile company when Warren Buffett purchased it. Unfortunately, it was one of those entities that he simply could not rehabilitate in its current format. It could not continue trading as a textile entity. Certain assets were sold off, partnerships were made, and eventually the company was then converted into the financial and investment house that we know today. So success stories sometimes begins when the others end. On the topic, again, I'm a little bit biased. I have written a book on it. If there's anybody interested in getting a copy of a book on exit strategies, please feel free to contact me via LinkedIn or my direct email address. I'll be more than willing to share that with you, and I'd love to hear what you all think of this book. So exit strategies are always in the back of an entrepreneur's mind. The day you start your company, you must already be planning on the eventual exit. Some of these exits will only come when we retire. Others come much, much earlier, sometimes through good, sometimes through bad. Sometimes your opposition comes with such a good offer you can simply not afford to say yes. But in all instances, proper planning is vital. You should not just exit on a whim without giving careful thought or planning into not just your business's future, but also on your own. Successful exits require proper planning. You need to know why are you selling. And if the reason for selling is financial distress, then that's the reason you must be open and honest about. Then we need to know how we're going to exit it. Are we exiting it through the merger acquisition? Do we require Section 34 of the Insolvency Act? You need to do your homework and find out exactly how it needs to be done. These are topics we're not going to discuss this morning. We are going to look into the sale or the exit of a company in a financially distressed situation. And even in that financial distress situation, if it is done right, you can guarantee to a great extent the continuity of the business, the continued employment of staff, the growth, perhaps in a completely different format. Perhaps you've gone from a timber company to a technology company, as long as you can continue trading. And possibility of growth, if new partners are there, new funding are there, new opportunities are there. So it is all in the planning. Your reason for exiting your business is vital. Do not try and be clever. Do not try and hide anything. Do not try and make up a reason that you think a potential buyer would want to hear. Be honest about it, and it must be verifiable. If you're going to retire, make sure that you're over retirement age, or at least can prove that you can afford it. If you're going overseas, make sure to be in a position to present the opportunity, not just the myth thereof. Where you're going, do you have a passport? Do you have a visa? Make sure that you've got tangible information available. It is far too often in my career that sellers of a business come up with a reason for selling, going overseas, other business interests that simply do not exist. At the moment, busy with a company that's in the market for sale. When I initially started talking to them in February, it was an extremely urgent sale, and they are prepared to let it go for such a great price because the owner and the director of the company have secured employment in Ireland, and he needed to be out of the country within 60 days. We are now more than 6 months later. The reason is still the same. The urgency is still the same, but I've never seen a passport or an actual job. That does damage in the long run. If it's financial distress, be open and honest. If you're simply bored with the business, be open and honest about it. Don't tell a story that you think a potential buyer is going to want to hear. So we mentioned reasons for distress. Reasons for wanting to exit a business. It could be as retirement, if you are of a retirement age, if you have sufficient capital, if you are in a position to retire, that is a fairly decent reason. New adventures, new ventures, new businesses, new opportunities. That is, of course, a great reason as long as you can prove it and it can be verified. Financial distress is probably the easiest to convince a potential buyer about. It's the easiest thing to prove, but we are very, very seldom told by these directors that the business is in financial distress because they believe that it will absolutely destroy any interest in the business, which is absolutely not the case. As a business rescue practitioner, I assure you there are always buyers for a decent business, even if it is in financial distress. Favorable market conditions. You might find yourself in a situation where your company is in a niche market and now is the time to sell. Nothing wrong with capitalizing on your hard work. Unfortunately, not everything always goes well. There are instances where partnerships are simply deteriorating to the point where people can no longer work together. This also is a right time to sell. Even if it's then a management buyout where the one party buys out the other or both parties exit, it is a fairly common instance for companies to sell. And then, of course, the golden goose we all hope for is when that particular buyer, our opposition, or someone comes along and simply makes you an offer that you cannot refuse. These are the kind of situations that we dream of. They unfortunately very, very seldom happen. But when they do, you cannot afford to say no. So options available, I'm not even going to mention things like liquidation because that's not really an exit strategy. That's an end to the road. And sometimes a liquidation is what's necessary for that particular instance. And no one is to blame. It's only a failure if the choice to stop trying is not your own. If it is a valiant thing to do, if it's the fair and just thing to do, a liquidation is as honorable as any other business decision the board of directors can make. The other alternative are, of course, to sell to a new owner, your entire business, lock, stock, and barrel, going concern, to a new owner. Management buyout, I get involved with this quite often as well, where the current managers of the business wish to buy out the owners. The owner obviously got his different reasons for wanting to sell, but the buyers believe in the business to the extent that they come together and actually do a management buyout. They talk to the banks, they talk to the financial partners, and management buyouts are often far easier to convince for financing than any of the other options. Partial sales, and a partial sale is, of course, very different to a merger. Partial sale is where you've got a certain section of the company that you have either outgrown or you need to raise capital, and your business can do without that part of the business, and you sell that part of the business completely out of yours. A merger, on the other hand, is where you join up with another company and you might then acquire, or you might need to let go as part of your business as a way of funding that merger. Structured wind down, again, if you were creating CDs and tape decks a couple of years ago, it might have been the only available option to yourself, where you needed to wind down your company, sell the assets, retrench your staff, cancel your lease, do the amicable thing, and do a structured wind down in your business. This is where sale is simply not possible. Or again, if you look at Warren Buffett's cigar butt investment, there might be more value in your company by selling it in parts than attempting to sell it as a whole. Again, nothing wrong with that, as long as you are treating the matter legal and you are fair to your staff in their retrenchment packages. Now, the big question is always, why would someone want to buy a business that's in financial distress? The reason is very simple for that. They might want to increase their market share. You might be that one little entity that keeps specific client or a specific region or a specific project in the area that another company wants. They purchase that in order to gain your specific market share or simply market share in general. Economies of scale makes a lot of sense as well. If you have a potential buyer that's in a similar industry, in a similar region, through the economies of scale, they will not need 2 receptionists. They don't need 2 sets of internet suppliers. They don't need 2 telecom providers. They don't need 2 leases. You can bring all of this together under one house, and you can thereby cut your costs and greatly improve the turnover, because the turnover from both entities will be added together. But the cost of running the business will not necessarily double up because of the shared expenses that these companies will then have. A little bit tricky, but very, very profitable if done in the right way. And then, of course, the distress that you find yourself in might not be relating to the business. It could have been a single bad decision or a chain of bad decisions made into the past that has now affected your business negatively. But obviously, when the new owner takes this over, that distress will not come with the business, as long as you can amicably settle the debt that is there, which is, of course, what you will do from the income of the sale. Then that distress does not come with the business. It will not impact the new owner. The new owner is simply assisting you with getting rid of whatever situation you find yourself with. And these are also the situations where you as a director or the CEO of the business does not necessarily need to exit. There might be room for you in the new venture, in the new business with a new partner. So there are many more reasons, but we're just looking at a couple of them this morning as to why there would be interest in purchasing a business in financial distress. The most difficult part of trying to sell or trying to exit a business that is in financial distress is putting a value to that business. There are many, many valuation models out there that can be used to make a business worth a lot more than what it is, worth a lot less than it is. Depending on which one you apply and how you apply it, the valuations will differ greatly. However, when we look at a financial distress situation, those valuations become fewer and fewer. There's your assets, less your liabilities, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, everything comes down to willing buyer, willing seller. It doesn't matter what the outcome of your valuation is. It doesn't matter how much you think your business is worth. It all matters how much the buyer believes it's worth. And then you must determine, as that business owner or the board of directors, whether that income is sufficient to get you out of the financial distress and put you on a path forward. Another option is, of course, when a business is in business rescue, you can make compromises with your creditors by paying them X cents in the rand, where in the ordinary course of business, the debt will remain there when you sell the business. It will either become part of the sale agreement and the new owner needs to take care of that debt, or it will stay with the old or the previous owners rather, but the debt will have to be settled in full at some stage or another, unless, of course, you go the liquidation route. But in business rescue, compromise, X cents in the rand. And additional to that, you could always have payment plans where instead of having to settle the debt 30 days from statement, or depending on your vehicle and asset finance agreement, you could, in a business rescue plan, provide for 1 year, 2 years, even 3 years payment plan on your concurrent debt. And you could combine the two by paying X cents in the rand over a certain amount of time. These are things that are not normally available in the ordinary course of business. And this is why business rescue can assist a financial distress business, even if the outcome or the desired outcome is to exit from the business and to sell it off to a new owner. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a short session for this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. And then just also again, thanks very much to Mr. David Masterton from BR360, who has kindly sponsored this series.
Hi, I'm David Masterton, Director of BR360. BR360 is a company that specializes in business rescue. That is why we wanted to team up with Pat and sponsor these episodes. These episodes provide insights not often spoken about. We look forward to future episodes and engaging with you, the viewer. Hope you enjoy Pat's insights and find it useful. Please feel free to contact us.
The views expressed in these episodes are solely those of the presenters and are based on their personal experiences. They do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of any professional associations or organizations with which the presenters may be affiliated. The content of these episodes is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, accounting, or any other professional advice. Viewers are encouraged to seek advice from qualified professionals regarding their specific circumstances.
Thank you for watching with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us for more. Thank you.